man, I think it's a 1.4 gigabyte hard drive. Alright, it is time for another low-end radio studio tour. Starting over here, the big addition to the studio is obviously the shelf that now houses all of the equipment and other things that are not related to the low-end radio studios, of course. Here's our set of CD players, or at least one of them, one set of them. At the bottom we got the Yamaha CDC585. I can't turn on the video light because it'll destroy the battery on this camera, which I'm using to record. In fact, I may end up having to swap the battery anyways. The next unit's a Sony. This is a CDP, if I can get over to it here. C545, that's the extent of the zoom. With custom files and all of that. I have made use of some of those. I have not made use of the music clip feature yet, but I'm thinking about it. And then we've got the RCA CD player that everybody loves. I forget what the exact model is. I think it's an RP8070S. But don't quote me on that. Over here, we've got the Technics RSTR270 cassette deck. And a new addition. I had to replace the Vector Research, unfortunately, because it's got a problem with the tape head. There's some broken solder joints, so every once in a while it'll drop a channel of audio, and I just got tired of having to hit the thing every time that it would do that. And hitting it's probably not too good for it anyways. So I put the Pioneer CTW600R into the studio setup for want of finding another single deck cassette deck. I've got another one. There's a JVC with analog VU meters, but it's got a problem with the tape head as well, so I can't use it. And on the bottom, we've got a Pioneer PDM6 with the single disc tray, configured as a single disc CD player. Before we get into all that stuff that's sitting over there, we're going to move down a bit, starting with this. Well, this is actually a list of all the inputs that I've got and all of the video on the video switchers. But this evil cable mess here, the one at the back is not for the studio, but the two front ones are. They're hooked up into this Triplite Omni 1000 LCD UPS. So that backs the studio, at least all the critical parts, in the event of a power outage, which fortunately has not yet happened while I've been on the air, but it's only a matter of time. It'll give me about 5 minutes to shut everything off, which is all I really need anyways. 5 minutes, it should be enough to finish a song, tell everybody the show's ending, and then turn stuff off. There's a broadcast encoding computer. It's a Dell Dimension 5150. Really nice unit. Part of the reason, actually before I even continue, just a little bit of a sidebar, part of the reason why the zoom may not be as far on this camera as it usually is because I'm using the wide-angle lens, so I can get more in shot because, well, this thing's got a very narrow field of view. The computer beside it is planned to eventually be a WeatherStar 4000 simulator, but I haven't gotten around to that yet, so it just sits there idle. And the computer right beside that is an HP Evo D530 CMT that runs all the slideshows. The computer down there doesn't do anything. It's nothing more than storage. There's the keyboard for the Evo. And on top of that is the Toshiba Portage 7020 CT, again inside of an evil cable mess. That I used to do headphone monitoring, and I've also recently started broadcasting to audio only using that computer, because believe it or not, you can actually broadcast to a Shoutcast or Icecast server under Windows 98. I thought that was pretty cool. Moving back up, actually I'll continue to move up, because we'll get into this in a minute. We've got a D-Link network switch, and then there's a VCR, DVD-VCR combo unit, that's for the color bars. The netbook is for audio processing purposes. Here's the keyboard for the netbook. There's the screen. I've got that hooked into a KVM switch, along with that IBM keyboard. The mouse is not. The mouse actually will not work through a KVM switch, so I'm really interested to know why that is. This is probably just because it's a cheap mouse. It's a little thing that probably came with an E-Machines computer. Beside that, it's the music player. Oops, get some focus there. Beside that's the music player computer, the Toshiba Tecra 8200. And in terms of studio stuff, on this rack, that's pretty much it. There's spare studio stuff sitting up there. But, so I guess that's really it. Now I can get into all the other stuff like the cameras. This is the equipment camera. It's the Panasonic PV-L608. The highest end camera I've got. It's the highest end palm quarter that I've got, although it's got a problem with speed, maintaining its tape speed, so that's why I use it in the studio. Because at least the picture's okay on it, so I figure that you people don't want to deal with all of the warbly audio, even though I don't mind it. I don't really care that much. There's another studio camera. This is the JVC GR-AX96. I've been looking for a camera that doesn't record, that I can replace this with, so that it's not in the studio anymore. Beneath that, we've got a Nokia 4-port semi-smart switch. It's got an automatic feature whereby it detects changes, or I don't know what exactly constitutes a change in the picture to this thing, but if the picture changes enough, it'll switch to that input. So, there you go. It's also got a manual mode, of course. Below that is another video switch that I've actually got hooked into input 4. This is a Nextech unit, which you might be able to see if I can get it in shot. Another 4-port. And on the 4th port of this, I've actually got this switch, which is a 5-port Icon, another cheapo switch that I paid very little money for. And it works, although input 2 on that's kind of messed up. At the back, you've got an audio mixer. That's my Behringer Xenix 802. It's my original mixer. And what I replaced that mixer with is this. This is the Behringer Xenix 1002FX. It's got a couple more inputs, and it's also got the FX processor, although I personally think that FX are dumb. At least most of them. I use the reverb. That's really the only effect that I can see myself ever using. I think that the pitch fading and the undulation and all that's kind of just stupid. There's the primary studio camera. It used to be a JVC, but now it's a Sony Handycam. This is the CCD-TR36 that does not record. I think it's missing one of the rollers in the tape assembly, because it's only got one in there, and I think there's supposed to be 2. But I don't really know how that mechanism works. It looks like it's kind of busticated anyways, so I don't think I'm going to have a chance of fixing that. And there's the studio speakers, monitor speakers anyways. A pair of realistic Minimus, I think what the Minimus 0.7s or something like that. I also have a set of monitor headphones, which are on the floor somewhere. Actually, they're over there. Those are the monitor headphones that I use to monitor the audio when I'm not listening to the speakers, because I don't listen to the speakers all the time, especially during the late night shows when people are trying to sleep. That's not really cool. Although, well, they interrupt me when I'm trying to sleep, so why can't I interrupt them? But anyways, that mouse right there, that trackball, is hooked up to the music player computer, and then there's another mouse in here somewhere. There it is. A little bell thing that I've got hooked up to the netbook. There's the microphone. Sock sold separately. It's a Shure VS100 or SV100, one of the two. I can never remember which order it's in. I got a couple USB microphones. Those are backup studio microphones for guests if they don't bring their own microphone. There's a Switchcraft, what would you call that? Audio combiner thingy over there, but that puts a lot of noise in the line, so I haven't used it. Here's the other studio camera, or another studio camera. Panasonic PV-IQ403 that's been dropped and no longer records to tape. That's the studio wide-angle shot. And what else is in the studio? I'm not going to count the my main computer because that one's fairly obvious. What else is in the studio, though? I don't think there's much else. There is another camera. This Sony CCD-TR72. Sorry, CCD-TRV72 Handycam Vision is the rear shot on the show. The secondary equipment shot, we'll call it that. And, well, I think that's really it for studio equipment. I can't think of anything else that's used in the studio. I mean, I guess technically you could count the fan that's back there, which you may or may not be able to see. There's a fan back there, and there's a couple props. Obviously those two lights, the lava light and this thing. But, other than that, there's an angry bird back there. You may be able to see the bird poking up. I don't really know. Maybe just barely. That red thing that's over there. I don't even know if I'm looking at the right thing or not, because I've only got a grayscale viewfinder. But I think that's really it. I can't think of anything else to add as concerns studio equipment. So, I'm going to conclude the video with that. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. And this is CP666 signing off. I hope to see you next time. Till then.